It's got to be the host.
We're both hosts.
Okay.
Okay, so that's recording.
Okay.
Okay, I will start letting people in. Okay, here we go. If I can figure out how to do that.
Go to the waiting room, view the waiting room, and admit all. Just did.
Yep.
Hello, everybody.
So we'll be starting soon. Feel free to add where you're joining us from in the chat. And we have a quick little poll just to see who's here. And more people will be joining. And we'll maybe just give everyone a couple more minutes. There's just people still joining, so then we'll start. So, Gabriela, do we want to start and keep going? I can leave the poll up so as people join, they can come in and keep adding to the poll.
Okay. The only thing is that it will be in the middle of the screen, but it's okay.
You can minimize it for you.
Okay. So everybody can minimize it, right?
No.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Oh, it's only you. It's only you and I that see it. Everybody else, once they answer it, it goes away.
Oh, okay.
So we see the results, but everyone else, no one else does.
You can have a look at the results at the end of the introductions if you like.
Yeah.
That might be good.
Yep.
So hello,
so it's just
everybody.
for you and I. Yeah.
Great. So maybe we should. Can we not share the screen for the moment while we're talking? I love to see everybody. It's such a pleasure. Closing so that we have more space. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to be in this pandemic world that increases our possibilities of being together. There's always a good side to everything. And I think maybe we should start with introductions, Edwina.
Yeah, yeah. So let me introduce you to our little team for today. So Christo, who I am going to spotlight just for the minute. So Christo is a former trial lawyer and barrister. He developed an interest in human performance and meditation. He trained and coached Olympic athletes in how to generate and maintain peak performance states using both Eastern and Western techniques. And his work then spread to companies who were interested in peak performance in their people, and soon after developing organizational change and corporate cultures that generate and support high performance. Christo left the legal profession to pursue his interest in transforming companies and empowering people, and he's trained executive coaches in various coaching institutions, in-house executive coach teams, large organizations and boards. He's an author, lives in Melbourne, and welcome, Christo.
Thank you, Edwina, and let me welcome everybody here too. I really appreciate, we all appreciate you being here and setting aside time today for this event. It's actually a very, very important event because, as all of you here would know, there are a lot of issues with the legal systems around the world. And what we're going to be looking at today is an extraordinary process that can assist with dealing with and resolving conflicts in the legal system, and to make it a much more, if you like, user-friendly place. I'm particularly happy to introduce Gabriela Asma, who first spoke. Gabriela is an extraordinary person. We've only known each other for a few weeks, but I've got to say I'm really impressed with what she's done and achieved. She's a lawyer, mediator, an ombudsman, and a systemic constellator, and you'll learn more about that as we go through. She was a pioneer in the mediation market in Brazil, which is where she lives, and she helped to craft the mediation market there. She was a co-author of the Brazilian mediation law, and she served as a mediator in corporate, family, criminal, and community conflicts within the Rio de Janeiro court system and in private practice. She has supervised court-annexed mediations in Rio de Janeiro since 2007. Gabriela is a mediation speaker and trainer at numerous universities and other public and private entities throughout Brazil and abroad. She was one of the founders of the Mediation Commission at the State Bar, for which she won the Supreme Court Innovator, I think that's the right pronunciation, Innovator Award 2009. Her experience includes conducting multidisciplinary teams, conceiving social and environmental responsibility projects, designing business strategies and public policies in different sectors in Brazil. And she's worked as outside counsel in prestigious Brazilian and New York law firms, as general counsel, public affairs director, and ombudsman in multinationals and internationally. And due to her background in conflict resolution, Gabriela now applies deeper systemic methodologies, which is what we're going to be looking at today, to a wide variety of decision-making processes, from the individual perspective to complex corporate strategies, including collective and diffuse relational structures. Great honor. Welcome, Gabriela.
Thank you so much. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Edwina, who is the reason why we are all here. She got in contact with me through those connections that we can only think comes from above. So I'm very thankful. So she came from Cape Town to Australia when she was 3 years old only. And ever since, she has been a healing person. So she had just the experience she needed to get into this path that has no return, of trying to make a better world and better people for this better world. And she's been doing a lot of things, over 20 years of experience in this broad sense of process improvement, training, coaching, and facilitations in general, but in the specific path of systemic constellations. She's been running workshops since 2009, and she's also a trainer for new constellators. And the reason why we're all here is because in one of her workshops, there was a couple from Brazil. And at lunch, they were talking about general subjects. And they mentioned that there is this strange country on the other side of Earth where constellation is used inside the judiciary system, which is Brazil. And that's how she got a reference of a common friend to whom I'm also very thankful. She will be here with us probably later. And then this person said, well, I know a Brazilian who knows about the legal system in Brazil and also about constellation. And she wrote me a WhatsApp. And a few months later, we had a Zoom meeting, and ever since we have been meeting quite often and trying to put little pieces together so that we can make a better map for this better world that we're all in. And that more than ever, we see how connected we are and how interdependent we are. And just to get going the subject and passing it back to Edwina, I must say that I'm here representing Brazil, not just because I am the best constellator in Brazil, but just because there was this sum of factors that took Edwina to me and not to somebody else. So I believe I deserve. I'm sure I deserve. And I'm very proud at this moment to be Brazilian, to be bringing something that Brazil was innovative with. Of course, it started with Bert Hellinger, and there was this Brazilian judge who met Bert Hellinger and Sophie Hellinger and understood how constellations could be useful in the judiciary system. And then Brazil became an innovator. And at these times, these very hard times, for many reasons, political, health issues, and so on, having a reason to be proud of, it's something very, very important. It's a healing by itself. So that's why Edwina found me. And now I'm passing the word back to Edwina.
Thanks, Gabriela. And yes, it has been amazing. Yeah, only a few months, I guess, that we've been talking. We spoke to some judges, Brazilian judges the other day, and yeah, just amazing what is being done in Brazil. And hopefully through this work, we can spread what is being already done so that more countries can find out and maybe other countries can follow their lead. So we have a range of different people, and I'll just keep letting people in as they join. But we have a range of different people here from different skill sets that understand constellations and some that don't. So how today is going to look is we're going to do a little bit of an introduction about what is constellations, and then we're going to have Gabriela is then going to explain a little bit more about what they're doing more specifically in Brazil. And then we'll do a systemic exercise. So if you can grab 4 pieces of paper, if you can, blank pieces of paper, and we'll be doing an exercise. Everyone will have a chance to do an exercise. And Gabriela will lead you through it. And then we will have questions and answers, and hopefully we get a chance to actually do a constellation with someone who's here, so you can experience that and maybe partake in that. So constellations generally, and as was mentioned, I work with constellations more from, not from a legal perspective, but more from a personal perspective. I do work with people from a business context, but mostly I'm working with people from a personal perspective. And Bert Hellinger, who introduced this work, says that constellations is the science of relations or relationships. So we actually understand in our human form, we understand ourselves the most in relation to others and everything else. So in relation to other people, in relation to the world, in relation to money, in relation to nature, in relation to everything. We understand ourselves in relation to others. And so he defined it as the science of relations. And also it's been termed, constellations is the bridge between the head and the heart, or the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, the seen and the not seen, the knowing and the feeling, the story and the you see that, like the story mind and the feeling body. So it's the bridge between those things, and it's also the connection with everything else, our relationship as well with everything else that's out there. So often when we're looking at constellations or doing a constellations, part of what we're doing in the constellation is we're looking at what's been separated that needs what's been joined that needs to be separated, and what has been separated that needs to be joined. So that's often what is kind of happening within a constellation. We're looking at what's this entanglement that maybe needs to be separated, that's not helpful for this person or this situation. That's from a kind of personal perspective, very, very brief, but maybe Gabriela can take it from there and explain it a little bit more from a legal perspective.
So I of course started my path also with family constellation. This is the basic. This is what it's useful for absolutely everybody. Everybody comes from a family. It's the first system that we all experience. And of course, it builds who we are so that we can interact with other systems. It will always be important. But many times in life, it's not the only thing that is important. And in many environments, we cannot just talk about father and mother and relatives. We must talk about business. So talking about business and using constellation requires some kind of translation. We need to speak in the language that people can understand so that they can first give it a chance. So many times when I talk about constellation, I say that it gives you a better map to walk through the territory. It gives you a map that comes not only from your mind, not only from all your intellectual abilities, because many times or all the times when you look for experts to help you in anything, either a lawyer or a doctor or a psychologist or anything, if you go to someone to solve a problem, it's because most times you have already tried everything you could within your own ability. And many times you've been to one specialist and another one and a third one and a fourth and so on, and no one was able to do a diagnosis that would help you heal the problem, cure whatever was the cause to the problem. So many times there is no betterment at all. And in other times, you think the problem went away, but then it comes back. And then you do something else and it comes back. And again and again. So that all is very logical to tell us that the real cause of the problem was not addressed yet. If you don't go to the real cause, the manifestations of life is very creative. So many times you have a physical problem, a financial problem, a relationship problem, and they all have the same roots. So when you finally have that clear, that, well, there is something I didn't see yet, who can help me see that? And no other person will be able to help you but yourself. But you need a methodology to get there. And constellation is one methodology to take you there. It gives you a complementary view of your other intelligences so that you can finally see the crucial, the essential, the original cause of the problems, many times quite a bit of problems that you're facing. And it goes right to the point. It has a perfect aim. And just because this is not something we created, it's not an idea that Beth Hellinger had one day and put in paper and started teaching everyone to do the same. It's natural science. So through constellation, we can access information that is in you, the client, that no one else will be able to see unless they really help you connect with what is important to you in that situation. And that is the beauty of constellation. I many times in business environments, I say it brings up your other intelligences apart, not just the intellectual one, which will always be important, but many times it's exactly the mind, exactly everything you know that blocks you from seeing what really matters. So going through this defense mode is the only way to really have the good map that will allow you to know where you are, where you want to go, so that you can plan your way through the map towards the solution, if you want. And if you don't want, nothing will happen, and it's up to you. But at least you will know that there is a way, and that not going there is an option. And once it becomes a conscient option, of course, it brings up a lot more responsibility. So it's not everybody who wants that. But those who really want the healing, they will know that it's in their hands. So when the time comes, sometimes it's not immediate. When the time comes, they are able to go, or they are able at least to look for the right professional. Many times we think that something we're going through, a financial problem, for example, is related only to a finances expert. And maybe you will understand that it comes from a much deeper decision-making process. So what I have been working, and I think that is very innovative in relation to family constellation, because when we do family constellation, and I didn't see the poll after so many people have answered, but what I saw until a certain point was that most people at least had some knowledge and experience with constellation, and some had a lot, right? So most of us here are used to using constellation for relationships, for some kind of physical symptoms. So it's basically the Bert Hellinger methodology for constellations. And what he does, what he taught us all to do, which is always very helpful, is first, you need to understand what the real cause, the essential of the demand is. Beyond all the complaining, all the pain and suffering, there is a request. And what is that request? So that is the first task of the constellator, to help the client go through the complaints towards the real request, what he's really asking the world, himself, everything of conscient and unconscious there is around him to show him. We understand that, and we place the first elements in the field. Everybody knows what the field is? Is there anybody who doesn't know? So please, if there is anybody who doesn't know what the field is, maybe we should explain. Would you like to explain it, Wiener? Should I?
Maybe we should, just because some people might be catching the recording, and
true.
They may not know.
True. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. The way I understand it, or the way that I refer to it, is that it's like a field. It's been known as the knowing field, or being called the knowing field. I refer to it as a field of consciousness, meaning it's a field that contains everything. So everything exists, all answers exist, all problems exist, everything exists there. And when we're doing a constellation, similar to what you said, is that part of it is we're helping the client to find that answer that they're looking for out of that field where everything exists. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's just that they haven't seen it yet, or they're not aware of it yet, or it's not in their awareness yet. And so as a constellator, as a facilitator, what we're doing is we're helping them to find how they navigate towards what it is that they're really after. That's the missing link, that there's the thing that's holding them back from getting wherever it is that they want to get. That's probably how
I heard a very nice definition from a young person who was already born digital. So he said, it's like the cloud. You just download information that is there waiting for you. And the main scientific source we have to explain the field is Rupert Sheldrake, an Englishman who is still living. And as he explains it, he started researching about behavior, first in plants, then in animals, and then humankind. Not that we are not animals, but we're a little different. And he wanted to explain behavior in what matter is not enough to explain. So, for example, he was studying why frogs and, now I don't know that name in English, salamandra, is that something like that? Is there something like that? Oh, anyway.
That's salamander, yeah.
Salamander, okay. So these two species, they have more or less the same physical structure, but if you amputate the salamandra, it will regenerate and the frog won't. So why? Why would the frog want to be handicapped? So what he tested in scientific methodologies was that if you give the electricity, the electric incentive to the frog, he will also regenerate. Then he went on to study the group behavior of animals, such as fish and birds and wolves and so on. And how would you explain that large number of small fish that swim together for miles and miles, never collapsing and never getting lost? So things like that he was studying when he realized that what connects the group, each group, no matter what group of living creatures, whatever creature, from cells to countries to whatever, is what he named as morphogenetic fields. And these fields are basically electromagnetic energy that connects us all. And although his theories are not completely accepted in science yet, scientists cannot deny the findings. So one thing is to have a pure scientific explanation. We don't have that yet. But with all the data that he gathered, it can also, the effects of the field cannot be denied, although the explanations for the existence of the field are not complete according to science yet, but we are getting there. Anyway, we don't need to know any of that. Bert Hellinger wouldn't like any of that. Rupert Sheldrake met Bert Hellinger in a workshop, and he just asked Bert Hellinger if Bert Hellinger understood what happened in the field, why it happened. And Hellinger said, I don't know why it happens. I just know it happens, and that's enough for me. And then Rupert said, can I explain? And then he went on. So for us, it's just enough to know that the field exists. It really causes sensations. It's the sense of the body, it's not the mind, that leads us to these numerous informations that come up. Okay. So how do we use that for decision-making processes? I was saying, and then I went to another direction, that when Hellinger used constellations, he was a therapist. He was a psychologist, a priest, a philosopher, and so on. So it was a brief therapy, as he said many times, and then he evolved a little bit to saying it was an aid to life, it is a way to help people go through whatever they're going through. And he first understands what is essential. He places it in the field. He sees how the representatives behave. And once the entanglement is detected, then he reorganizes the field by testing new replacements, repositionings of these elements until they find some kind of harmony. Correct, Edwina? You can disagree if you want, please.
No, absolutely spot on. Yep.
Okay. So this is a healing process. What we do for decision-making process not necessarily will go to the end. So we mostly do the diagnosis phase. So we listen to the client, what he's been trying to resolve and has not succeeded yet. We understand what is essential, and it can be the client, it can be the market, it can be the competition, it can be the product, the power that people are fighting for, especially when we are talking about boards, for example, a corporate board. If people are fighting over and over and can never get to consensus, why is it happening? What are they really representing? So I got to constellations through mediation. I have been a mediator for over 20 years. And in one specific mediation, I had been a client to Constellation long before that. And I loved it. And it's interesting to say that my first constellation was for the fear of talking in public. So if not for constellations, I wouldn't be here at all. And then the following day, I had to give a 4-hour class in a very prestigious law school. So I was freaking out a week before. And the following day, I didn't even remember that I had a heart. Normally, my heart got there before me, like half an hour before. My heart was already shaking outside of me. So anyway, so then when we are, me as a mediator, did everything a mediator does, which is very healing, which is very transformative, which is very inclusive of the subjectivity of the situations. And still, I had the feeling that many times I didn't see enough. I didn't help clients see what they really needed to see. And in one case, we started from very far away, it was very unlikely that anything like a settlement would happen. And it was in court, so they were obliged to go. Even worse, because when they're paying you directly, when they're choosing you to be the mediator, it's more likely that at least they know what they're doing when they come to you. But in this case, it wasn't in the courts. They didn't want to be in mediation. They went, they agreed to stay, and we made so much progress. It was unbelievable. And at the last step, one step to holding hands, it all blew up. So I said, this is not everything I could do. What else could I do? And then I started asking myself for a long time, what else could I do? And what didn't I see? What didn't I help them see? And then I remembered Constellation as a client that I was. And I said, I'll learn to do it. Let's see how I can match Constellation and mediation. And then it was absolutely transformative. Even before I became a constellator, because it's a long training, I started using elements of Constellation with mediation clients, and the results were amazing. Either during a mediation, in private sessions, of course, or before a mediation, even to decide if a mediation is even useful. Many times, there's no solution in this level. You and the other person will never agree to anything, including a mediation. Or many times, it's just such a big stretch that it's not even necessary. So you just have to look at reality and deal with it. Either you have an agreement before you even need mediation, and many times a mediator loses clients, right, Christina? Christina is also a mediator. Just because you solved their problem before they started. And many times it's useless to go. So even as a professional that of course needs to bill hours, but I don't want people to start something that will not be successful, because for dealing with conflict for many years, I know that the more you try and not succeed, the less you believe in a solution and the more you blame the other person. So of course, it's not good for anybody to start something with no expectation of results. So I started doing constellation before mediation. And when we constellate one side, we constellate the other side. And once they go to the first meeting together, of course, they're separate on the first moment. When they go to the first meeting together, they already know where the intersection of possibilities are. So our task in mediation is a lot easier. They're already looking at the same direction, at least. So it's much easier to build consensus upon that, that complementary view of the intersection. And also, we can constellate many times after a legal proceeding has ended, because the legal proceeding very rarely solves the problem. So that was my first approach to constellation, adding it up to legal decision-making processes. After I became a constellator in full, many clients came to me for decision-making related to legal proceedings. So I'm in a legal proceeding. I'm not seeing a very good perspective. What should I do now? Should I call for a settlement? Should I call for mediation? Should I remain in the process? Should I appeal or not? This is all constellatable. I don't know if that word exists, but I just created. That is one thing. And that is private practice, of course. So now talking more about mediation, constellation in the judiciary. Brazil has 26 states. Brazil has a very, very big territory. And over this territory, there are 26 states, 19 of which now use constellation inside the judiciary. I don't know what I can hear you because you don't have a mic on. Do you want to unmute yourself? Lean. You're still mute. Oh, let me see if that helps. Okay.
That's wonderful. How can we bring it to Australia?
That's what she asked me a few weeks ago. And that's what we are here to.
It is, she's working on it, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
In Australia, we tend to want to build more jails, which is not helping the situation at all.
It's not only in Australia, it's most of the world, including Brazil. So we're just trying to balance. And I need to picture it a little clearer. It's not that paradise yet, neither in Brazil nor anywhere, but we're working on it. That's the important thing. So throughout these 19 states, we have different levels of experience in constellations inside the judiciary. So I brought two very special judges to talk to Edwina and Crystal, and they were picked specifically because they are from very distant states. One is from the north, the high north of Brazil. The other one is from Rio. And their experiences with constellation is completely different. So in some states, they have no structure. So the judge who wants to introduce constellation to their judgment needs to be a constellator. And on other states, they have a lot of volunteer work, so they don't need to constellate themselves. They can have constellators that will be there doing a volunteer work, but doing it as a source of experience, which is also good for them. And it's very interesting. So what we learned from the judges, and I have been talking to a lot of people around Brazil, especially because in many trainings I meet many of them, many judges interested in doing that more and more, is that there is no standard practice, first of all. There could never be, because Brazil is such a big country with so many cultures within itself. But what we had prior to constellation, since 2010, we have in Brazil something called the National Council of Justice. It is a public body that is, the members are, they have mandates of 2 years, and the members are from the judiciary, from public defendants, prosecutors, lawyers, all the legal different activities are represented. And of course, it is the Supreme Court that rules everybody, but everybody's there at least to be heard. And they try to harmonize the practices all over Brazil within the state judiciaries. So in 2010, the National Council of Justice had a resolution, a norm, an under statutory norm to regulate mediation in the court system. Mediation and conciliation started to be offered by the judiciary on first on a voluntary basis. So the state courts could decide whether to offer it or not. And then in 2016, when the law came up, we had the mediation law, to which I'm a co-author, and we had the civil procedure code that was reformed. And these two statutes regulate mediation in complementary ways. So ever since we had the civil procedure code regulating the opportunity of having mediation within the civil procedure process, the state courts were obliged to have a structure to offer extrajudicial methodologies within the judiciary. A little schizophrenic. So extrajudicial meaning not judicial, meaning everything else inside the judiciary. Anyway, so we have that system in place. We have that structure with volunteers, mediators, conciliators, etc., already there to offer something other than the fight. And of course, this has a very good reason, which is the total collapse of the judiciary. And just to give you a notion of what I mean by collapse, welcome. In 2015, I was in an international gathering of mediators in San Francisco, thanks to GEMS, to which I'm a fellow. It's called now the Weinstein International Fellowship. And we have mediators from all over the planet. And before me, everyone was supposed to talk about the development of mediation in their own country. And before me spoke a woman from India. And she said, India really needs mediation because we have 32 million pending processes in our judiciary. India. And then it was my speech. And I didn't know if I should cry or laugh. Because India has about 17.5 times the population of Brazil. And Brazil at that time had 108 million pending processes. India had 32 million, 108 million, with 17.5 less population. So This is Brazil. Brazil has more law schools than the rest of the world together. More law schools than the rest of the planet. So it's a lot of lawyers to do a lot of legal work. So how can the judiciary be a source of work for all these lawyers? 108 million processes pending. And of course, the quality of the decision making of the judges cannot be super special because it's too much. There will never be enough judges for this number of legal suits. So and that comes something that I love to say in many environments. There is never a great strength if not for a great weakness that was overcome. So all these creative ways that we find to get through our problems come from a deep experience of pain. It cannot be different. Unfortunately, we're not yet in the level of spiritual evolution to not need problems to get better. So from this judiciary in Brazil comes this pioneer experience of constellations in the judiciary. So I hope it will be something that we can export with a lot of pride, not to bring in money to Brazil, but to bring in gratitude to be here going through all of this. And so it's something, and then when we understand, and that's what happened to a lot of these judges. Just to compare, I mentioned the judge that is a constellator himself, and that Edwina and Crystal already met. It's one of many. And then there's this other judge that they also met that built in a public policy inside the system so that he can have volunteer constellators coming to constellate many thousands of cases. So these thousands of cases are starting to build statistics. Of course, when you do it on a one-to-one case basis, it's complicated to have statistics. But we now have in some states of Brazil, Rio is one of them, and there are others, they are having this bigger volume of cases so that we can start to create science upon this application. What they do in the Rio de Janeiro court is not the constellation that we normally think about. The judge invites many parts to many cases. They're invited, they're not obliged to go. Those who go, they go to a speech, they go to a lecture, and they listen about what is constellation and what they are invited to go to live through. Once those who want to stay, and he was very funny when he said that at first, since it all sounds so spiritual and so out of the box, many people just stood up and left because they thought it was something like too crazy for the judiciary, so it cannot be true, it cannot be serious. But they started to work on the vocabulary so people would not be afraid. And they do, so those who stay, they go through systemic exercises. It's not their real case, it's not Mary and John, it is any mother and any father and any child. And they experience the field in that situation that is similar to theirs, but it's not theirs specifically. Because, as this judge said, bringing the actual constellation, the real case constellation, to a public environment such as the judiciary was a little over for the top management of the courts to accept. So it's a step by step, and we're just walking this step by step, baby steps, but it's a lot better than nothing. So the statistics he mentioned was comparing mediated cases only. So it's all inside that structure that offers all these methodologies together. And they have the cases that were mediated without constellation prior, and the cases that had constellation in that model and then mediation. So we compare mediation to mediation results, and the numbers are cases not constellated, they settle in about 50%. And cases that were constellated settle about 80 something percent. So it's a huge difference.
Constellated and mediated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Constellated and then mediated. So they settle 33% more than the cases that were not constellated and just went through mediation. And what the judges realize on top of it, and it's quality, not quantity, is that the cases that were constellated, even the worst cases, the cases that seemed the least possible to find some kind of peace, even when mediated, many times they come back. So even with the settlement that they wanted to sign, they were not obliged. Many times they're back in court a few months later or some months later or years, doesn't matter, but they're back. And once they are constellated, they don't come back. And that is the best measure we could have. So it's really healing because people really understand what was the entanglement, what took them to conflict, first of all. And they were not even constellated in the specific case, just the experience of feeling in the shoes of the other person, of feeling what any mother or any father or any child would feel is healing. And that for me is the best symptom of it works. And so no, I just wanted to say something else. We are working on the translation of the materials that we already have. We're doing more research to get more materials. And of course, it needs to be translated into English. But we can already learn from these judges and their experience, etc. Some of them probably don't speak enough English to be here, but we will work it out so that they can come and tell by themselves what the experience is. And as I was mentioning to Edwina in a prior conversation, many people become a judge. Of course, it's not easy to become a judge. It's a very hard profession. People who are judges, at least in Brazil, they have to go through a very hard contest. It's very highly competitive. They have to work many times. They have to study many times, years and years before taking the test. And of course, they really wanted that job. But once they are there in the bench, they realize that the process doesn't help anybody, not even them. The process many times causes more problems than heals. And once they realize that, and some are there very, it's a very personal pain because they go home and they have to sleep over the decisions that they will make that will affect people's lives. So it's not something that you do without some reflection. Well, some people do, but these people who are, I would say, waking up to better possibilities, it's of course because they are not comfortable with what intellectual decision making, outside decision making, impositive decision making can cause to people. The first mediation that I ever did in the judiciary, in the Brazilian judiciary, was in 2007. And I was, me and my partner at the time, were invited by a judge who was a minor crimes court judge. And his experience was like that. When he became a judge, he was a criminal judge. Before being a minor crime judge, it's a little difference in Brazilian procedure. It doesn't matter here. So he first dealt with top violence. And the first case he got was a murder between neighbors. And once he got the case, it said that these people were living side by side for 15 years, and then suddenly one killed the other. So he went on the internet of the courts and saw that throughout those 15 years, they had 9 cases together, 9 procedures together. The first one was because of a problem in the wall that divided the houses, and so on. Threats and minor injuries, and then major injuries, and then blah, 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 and a murder. And he realized that the court had done everything it could for these people in what they were able to do. So deciding who's right and who's wrong and implementing the decision. But no one had looked at the cause. So the cause was still there, just multiplying. And then it was too late for at least one of them. And that's why he wanted mediation in his court. And we did a pilot program, and this pilot program went on, and now it's a public policy and that big and so on. So we realized there, me and all this team that worked together, that being a plaintiff or a defendant, it really depends on who got first to the police or to the court, because everybody is really entangled in that situation. Everybody is responsible somehow. When we're talking about adults, nobody is there by chance. Everybody at some point had some kind of freedom to stay in the fight or to just find another path. So if they got to that point, that level of conflict, is because they are absolutely absorbed in something that is much bigger than they are. And they cannot see, because if they could see, they would have made a better choice. So it's never about possibilities in general. It's always about what people are able to choose. And the only methodology that I know, of course, there are zillions of types of therapy. They're very useful, and I'm not diminishing any of them. But the one that is very straight to the point, that can help people see what keeps them there in that kind of already toxic relationship and so on, is constellation. So one thing is to find a constellator to help you go through a decision to go or not to go to court. And that can be a very rational delivery from constellation. We will put it in the field, we will see how the field responds, how you feel in relation to each one of the possibilities, and you will decide with more data. That is great. Another thing is going to the roots, and then we will need, most likely, family constellation. Or even when we don't give names as father and mother and so on, we will be dealing with them. We can call them profit and resources. We can call them being a dentist or being a lawyer. We can call anything, but it always will go back to father and mother, inevitably, one day or the next.
Yes, so even if you move to the other side of the world because you don't want to be near your parents, it will show up somewhere.
Because they are just there with you. So
Gabriela,
let's do the exercise. Yes?
Just a couple of points here that you've raised that might be interesting too. The judges that we spoke to dealt primarily with family matters, family court disputes, which is an obvious area here for the use of constellations, because the constellations deals extremely well with family relationships, and anybody who's been through the family court, like I have a couple of times, even though I was a lawyer, knows that it's one of the most intense and distressing and harmful.
Destroying.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to have a heart attack, it'll be through that. It's really a very difficult set of circumstances, but they use it primarily, the judges we spoke to use it primarily for family disputes, custody, property, and whatever. And they had very, very good results from this. But I'll get you to just maybe comment on how else you can use it also in the judicial system, because it's not just family matters. It can extend out to more commercial matters. I mean, one of my good friends is a patent attorney and a copyright lawyer, and they're always having very intense battles in the federal court over over various trademarks and whatever the case is. You can use it for situations like that. I gather that you've been using it for that sort of thing. But there's also another thing that came up, if I can just put this in. One of the things that stood out for me with the judges that we spoke to was the impact on them personally in the way in which they conduct carry out their work, because the extent to which they can achieve long-lasting and sustainable settlements between the parties who don't keep coming back and don't have to litigate and fight it out for days in court means that it's much less stress on them. It's much lower costs for the court and for the judicial system. And I'm particularly interested in that because a couple of years ago, Edwina and I went to a seminar here in Melbourne where a judge was speaking about the mental health of judges. And it became a topic because a couple of magistrates and I think a judge in one of the other states had committed suicide not long before that. So it came under the microscope, if you like, and they were talking about how they can deal with the immense stress of not only the court process, but of making decisions that impact on people's lives in a way that can be very destructive of one party or the other. And they have to make a choice. It's a very, very difficult thing. So the judges we spoke to, from what I understood, what they're saying, found that this type of process made it a lot more humane, if you like, as well as successful in the outcomes to conduct constellations with the parties, so that the parties get to understand that other level of what the dynamic was that was going on within them, that they're actually fighting over, that wasn't conscious. So they just fought it out in a battle and probably wasted a lot of money, time, energy. But do you have any other sort of comments on it?
Yeah,
take it, right?
Just before Gabriela says that, because one of the judges was saying too that it was what they noticed was people sometimes came out of that system worse off than when they went in the first place. So it actually, even though it was supposed to be a system that helped you to get a resolution, people were actually coming out personally and probably mentally and emotionally worse off than when they started at the beginning. So that was also playing on the individuals that went through it. So that was also kind of in the back of the judges' minds as well.
Yeah. And another very interesting use for constellation and going on that baby steps logic, which is necessary. Starting from family, it's kind of obvious. It's not by chance that Bert Hellinger also started with families, because that's where the pain is more obvious. We cannot hide it. It's something that is right there in front of us 24 hours a day or something close to that. So in family courts, they were allowed to start because it's less, it involves less money in most cases, not in all of them, but in most, compared to business cases. And it's less dangerous, if you say, I don't agree, but anyway, that's how they think, compared to criminal courts. There are some judges in Brazil trying to use constellation in criminal courts. And I think that would be absolutely fantastic, because that really goes to the bottom of the essential of society, right? To really see that, what happens to these people that took them to that level of violence. But this National Council of Justice is not yet ready for it. So start with family and we will see. In 2017, they had a meeting with all, like a workshop with all the judges that are all over Brazil doing this kind of work in a very different way, one from the other. But it was a start. And ever since, they haven't done much, especially because for this, since last year, nothing much is happening, or only the basics, and not even many times. But what I wanted to mention is that, as Cristo said, in commercial issues, for example, bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is nothing more than a corporate soul that is about to die. So it's just the same as using constellation for a disease in the human body. Bankruptcy is a disease, a terminal disease. So it would be, and normally we deal with many creditors of different levels. So the big creditors don't agree with the rights of the small creditors because they want everything for themselves. And then at some point, there's not even enough for them. So everybody loses. And if we can heal the roots of the problem, it would be healing for all this bigger system. So it's a system within a system within a system. And I really see constellation helping a lot in this kind of cases. But then we'll see the next chapter. So would you like, anybody would like to add anything, ask anything? Or
should we go to the exercise? And I'm just going to say to people, if they didn't see it at the beginning, if you can get 4 pieces of blank paper, just to have that ready for when Gabriela leads us through the exercise. But I don't know if there was
and also if you have any questions, you can also type them into the box there, and we'll try.
Wrong PowerPoint. Oops. Let me stop sharing. I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. Let me see here first. Okay, now. Okay, are you able to see it? No?
No, not yet.
Okay,
yeah, so if everyone can get their pieces of paper while Gabriela's finding the PowerPoint, and she'll lead us through
the other
a
PowerPoint
systemic.
is for the constellation.
Okay, so she's going to lead us through a systemic exercise.
Now, can you see it?
Yes, and I can see the one with Bert Hellinger. Yeah, the hands.
Mm-hmm. And this is your part. So
okay, but that's fine. We can probably move past that. Yeah, go to.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So this exercise it's interesting exactly to show the gap between the intellectual possibilities and the systemic possibilities. So I would ask you to please think about a conflict that is real. It needs to be real. It's not something hypothetical. It needs to be current, so it has not had a solution yet, and it's really bothering you. It needs to be personal, so it's yours. It's not the neighbors or somebody who told you that or anything. And it's concrete, very concrete. I would also ask you not to involve children for many reasons. So just between 2 adults or 2 groups of adults. It can be your building, the neighbors of your building, and the neighbors of the other building on the other side of the street, dealing with some noise issues, whatever. It can be groups, but it needs to be groups of adults, and it needs to be important to you. Otherwise, you won't be able to feel the exercise. And once you have found that, you won't need to say it, to say anything about it unless you want. But once you have found that example, it can be something not so complicated. I would ask you to answer these 8 questions. And of course, you have some time, let's say about 8 minutes. You think it's enough, Edwina?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
or even less. Yeah. So
Yeah, okay,
you're just
so-
writing it down on your piece of paper. You don't have to reveal it to anyone. You're just working through these questions. Yeah, 8 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so since we are in different time zones, we are on time whatever 41 now. So at whatever 50, we will resume. Okay?
And if you have any questions, just let us know in the meantime about the exercise.
If you're done, we can start earlier. Time is always very valuable. Should
Yeah,
we?
I think we can maybe
Okay.
see how people are going.
So my
And
question,
continue.
I don't know why it happens in the screen. The question is, by answering these questions, did you get more awareness? Did you get any information that can be useful? Meaning, of course, you're answering with what you already knew, but the exercise of answering the questions, of having these reflections, is it helpful towards solving the problem?
I've got a little square on my screen. I don't know if you've.
Yeah, this square happens because I
Okay.
I passed
That's all right.
the mouse through something. So I need your answers. I cannot answer for you, anybody. You don't need to talk about the conflict itself, but just this perception of if it helped or not.
Maybe just unmute and say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a shot at it. Yeah, it was an interesting exercise, and it gave me a perspective on another party that is involved, that is directly influencing the person with whom I have the differences, if you like. There's another party very strongly influencing that, and it became quite evident from a couple of the last questions, and a pattern of isolation that's gone on there, or exclusion that's gone on there. So it was an interesting perspective. Working on one part is not necessarily going to work. I've got multiple parts in there that are influencing each other that need to be worked on. Yeah.
So this is what we normally do in mediation. In mediation, it's common to have conflict mapping at the beginning. So the mediator learns about the case, asks questions, asks people, the parties, and other people, and do some research in order to map more or less the level of conflict that he will face, and then decide how to interact with the people, how to design the dialogue process, and so on. And of course, this is through our intellectual intelligence. So anybody else would like to just say if you have added anything that is useful or not to your next steps towards solving the problem?
Hi, I'm Diane Martin. Hello. The 8 questions directed me to look at who was involved in the conflict, and the question that asked you to look back for patterns in relationship with others yielded a personality that I wouldn't have thought initially was involved in the conflict, current conflict. Yeah. So if I were looking to resolve, the conflict initially at step 1, it would be me and the other person. But at the end of step 8, it's clear perhaps that a third person needs to be brought in to resolve it.
Good. It's useful information. Okay, thank you.
That's what I got out of that exercise.
Great. It's already something. But now we're going to do the next step of the exercise.
Can I just add one thing, Gabriela? That's interesting with what the other speaker just said. When I was thinking about the problem initially in the first few questions, it was more of a thinking process. But when the shift came and I understood something else, it was a definite feeling inside the body that moved. And it was accompanied by a lot of compassion there was quite a distinct sense of that. Instead of blaming the other party that was influencing, there's a lot of compassion that came in there. But I could see a perspective there that's quite different. Yeah.
Very good. So now let's do the systemic exercise. I'm sorry for this window that is here. I don't know why it happens. Oh my God. Anyway, so that's where the 3 pieces of paper come to use. If you could please put them on the floor, just like they are here. Number 1, it's your place. Paper number 2 in the middle. No, so not number 2 is the other one. So there's a paper in the middle that is the in between. It's the space for the relationship. This paper is very, very important, but it should not be stepped over. And then the third piece of paper, which is number 2, is the place of the other person involved. The same conflict that you just wrote about, but now you're going to do the systemic exercise to the same situation. And the exercise is, you please step on the first one, number 1, which is your place, and stay there for a few moments. Normally less than a minute is enough. And you just feel in your body how it is like to look at the other person. So stepping on paper number 1, you will look in the direction of paper number 2, as if you're looking at the other person involved in the conflict. And after you're very obedient, so you're already doing the exercise. You just feel it. There's no right and wrong. There's no intellectual anything that you should be worried about. And once you have had enough information on your body, you step to the side and you go to the paper number 2 that represents the other person without stepping on the paper in between. And then from the place of the other, you will look at your place where you were before, which represents you, and you will stay there for long enough, not yet, long enough to feel how the other person feels looking at you. And then once that is done for you, you can take your time. You go back to step number 1 and look again to the other person. And then you tell me it's over.
So just clarifying again, when you're moving from 1 to 2, don't step on the one in between, step to the side. Yeah.
Once you have been back to number 1 for a few moments, you can just come back to the dialogue with us. Let's resume. Should we? So I'll stop sharing because it's better to see people. So what were the differences? How did you find it different from the first step of the exercise?
One of the things that I actually found different was that maybe it is what it is, you know, and just to accept it what it is as well.
That is a great awakening.
Mm.
Many times there's nothing to be done except accept. And if we have our expectations in that level, it's easier to deal with whatever is.
But I also wondered how good it would be to do it with when you have conflict within yourself as well. Mm-hmm. On a subject. It would be a good exercise for that one as well.
Okay. But do you think that this systemic exercise brought you to a better understanding than the intellectual one before answering the questions?
Probably more the same, but more acceptance. Mm-hmm. Just more acceptance. It's just leave it there. It is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Robbie. That's very interesting, the bit about acceptance. I hadn't even considered that. I'm trying to resolve the problem in the best way I can through either compassion or rationality or offering conciliation. It's not happening on the other side. And as this lady has just said, maybe it's just how it has to be and accept it for what it is. That is really amazing. So thank you for that bit of information.
It's yours. The information is yours.
Thank you.
I think Leslie has her hand up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got, because I'm in a one-on-one conflict with someone who I've experienced as being upset with me, and then I get defensive, and so that's been sort of the what it looks like from the outside. And when I stepped into her, like she wanted to shake me, like, you're too defended, you're blocked off from me, I need to get access to you. And of course I experienced that as aggression. So just noticing what it's like inside of her, doesn't, I mean, it still feels bad to me, but it gives me a different frame on what's motivating, for her, the thing I feel I'm on the receiving end of. It doesn't quite get me to, like, okay, now what do I do next with that? But it is useful to notice the motivation for her is different than it feels like on my side.
There's a good intention, although you don't like the way.
Yeah, well, and I do wonder who I represent for her. Right. Good intent, I guess, a good intent. It's a different intent than the intent I feel. So it's useful information.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So if anybody else wants to comment, the question now is, should we do a constellation? Or because it's already 9 here in Brazil, 9 p.m. It's already late for you too. So we discussed a lot, Edwina, Cristo, and I, what should be the different phases of today. And of course, it's very interesting to do a constellation, although many of you are constellators, but doing a constellation for a decision that has to be made, not in the family style. And we can do that if a few of you want to stay. For me, it's a pleasure. So we can stay as long as it's useful. But I understand it's late and people, if it's during the day, you have to work or do something else. If it's during the night, it's very late and people are tired. So up to you, or we can just schedule another one. And
I guess what we could do is
one
if
with judges, right?
yeah. So I guess the thing we could do is if we do a constellation and you're happy to stay and represent, maybe when we get to that point, turn your camera on. And if you don't want to represent or you're going to have to leave in case it does go a little bit over time, then don't put your hand up to represent so that you don't have to leave partway through, although sometimes that can be quite interesting where it's actually the point where this person does leave in the constellation. So
Leslie is asking how late. I would say about an hour more, or an hour and so.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah. Or we just, so I guess, yeah, we'll open it up to people to see where they're at. I think it would be nice if we could actually do a constellation and show people what it is and represent. But again, it's first of all, we need to have someone who has a topic. Okay, so there's a few people who can stay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The thing is, somebody said she could stay for 30 minutes. Be welcome, but just don't be a representative, please, because we cannot stop the constellation in the middle. And if we need to go further, it can be fast, but it normally isn't. So.
And we will be recording it, so you can always catch the recording if you missed it.
So first things first. Who wants to be constellated? Raise your hand, please. Anybody wants to be constellated? Otherwise, there's no. Okay, David. Anybody else would like to be constellated? So I think it's you, David. No competition. So please stay with your videos on. Those who can be, who want to be and can stay to be representatives. Otherwise, feel free to go when you have to, but keep your videos off, please. So David, let's start. What would you like to see, to treat, to?
And maybe too, just not naming names if that's just, yeah, we'll just, if we need to mute anything, I can always edit it out of the video.
Do a few bleeps, huh?
Yeah. So tell me in general, I mean, tell me what you want to see, please. What is the demand?
So I've got a matter that I'm trying to progress at the moment. It involves an alleged criminal conspiracy to obtain several $1 million of property. Happened a few years ago, and it involves corruption in local government and organized crime and a couple of other things. It's quite complex. I was pretty much I was left in a situation where I spent 6 months wanting to take my own life back in 2013 when this was all going on, and I ended up with PTSD, and at the time it was very difficult to fight this because I hadn't realized who was involved and some of the influences that were going on with the authorities at the time. Over the course of the last few years, I've discovered pretty much the entire picture of what happened. And I'm now trying to go through authorities to get it investigated properly. But I've also got the opportunity to try and avoid the criminal process and to run a civil process, which would potentially prove fraud. It's a very complex case and it's very difficult to prove fraud at any stage. And I guess I'm trying to understand whether I should leave it to the authorities, and if they do investigate properly. This involves anti-corruption, government anti-corruption department, as well as other authorities. But I'm at a point where I think I can let it go. If they came back and said they weren't going to investigate, or they weren't going to, it wasn't going to work out for me in any way, I think I could walk away from it. And I'm just trying, I guess I'm trying to understand whether I should just leave it now. I have submitted to the authorities, so they do know what's gone on and who was involved, and it's very hard to get things investigated in Australia from a corruption point of view. Yeah, is that enough information?
It's actually too much.
Sorry.
I need less information.
I'll take some back, Gabriela. Which bit would you like me to take back?
You can have it. It's all yours, but I'll just choose a few pieces of information. So we have you have the authorities. As far as I understand from international practices, if I understood correctly, you have in the courts.
Correct.
You don't have yeah, right?
Correct.
So submitting something to the authorities means you're giving them the information so that they decide if they want to prosecute or not.
If they want to investigate at this stage.
To investigate or not.
And then
yeah.
If they investigated and found what I've submitted to be true, then they would then prosecute.
Yeah. So then you're just a witness to a witness, meaning you're just looking at things going on.
Yes.
And you don't have an action that you have to decide upon.
Correct. I'm not trying to take it through court myself yet.
Yeah. But your question is, should I take to court or not? Or should I just leave it there?
I think I can simplify this, and you've helped me in terms of just summarizing it for me, actually, is do I leave it to the authorities or do I do something else?
Yeah. So I don't need details, but I need the broad path. So if you are deciding to do something,
yeah,
what is really up to your decision? What is really in your hands to decide right now?
Well,
Option 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sorry, I've got a plane going over. I could attempt to go through court, okay. But I'd be self-representing. It would be very difficult in the Australian system.
Okay, so right now you have already submitted to the authorities, so this is not a decision anymore, it's done.
Correct.
And once it's done, it's a public decision. It's not, you cannot influence anymore. You cannot take it back, for example.
Correct.
Right? So this is done. This is a given.
Yeah.
Right? And you can, in parallel to that, you can start a legal action, or you can just wait.
I can just wait. Yeah.
Yeah. So
which is what I'm doing, which is what I'm sort of doing, really.
Yeah. But you're wondering if you should do something else, and the something else would be to start a legal proceeding.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. let's do it. Can you see the field?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you remote control, David. All right. Now you have control over the mouse. I will ask you to choose, but let me just 1 second. I'll just organize here.
This is dangerous. Edwina's never let me control her screen.
I'm crazy.
I might change now that I see what Gabriela's doing.
So I want you to please choose 3 pairs of feet. If you click it here and you, oops, okay, you can bring it here. You can turn in the green.
Yeah. Okay.
Ball.
Why is it
bigger, smaller?
Sorry, why is it 3, or who are the 3? Does it not matter? Just do as I'm told.
Here. You will see.
Okay.
Later on. Okay. For the moment, you just have to put 3 of them, whatever you want in the field, all the white space.
Okay.
Just 1 moment, please. Okay, that's it for the moment. So this is just to give us a notion of space, but I need to number them. Which one is which? 1, 2, and 3.
Which one is who?
The red feet is who? 1, 2, or 3. The purple feet is 1, 2, or 3.
But what does 1 represent? What does 2 represent? Doesn't matter. Just answer the question, David. Just answer the question, David.
Exactly.
God, Struth, you're really hard work, Gabrielle. 1 is that they're in the order left to right, 1 to 3. How about that?
It's up to you.
Well, how about that? Let's do that. 1 to 3.
Okay. So the black one is 1.
No, the other way. Left.
The
Sorry,
purple.
Your screen might be the other way around for me. So purple is 1, red is 2, black is 3.
Okay. Okay. All right. So please choose a representative. You choose 1 representative for number 1, 1 for number 2, and another one for number 3. And after you have chosen them among those who have the camera on, I'll ask them to rename themselves as 1, 2, and 3, and everybody else to turn off their cameras. Okay, so we will have the camera on just for me, for David, and for 1, 2, and 3.
So and can you see everyone's name? Can you see everyone's pictures? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just choosing someone to represent 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. So I'm not choosing somebody for me specifically. I'm just choosing 3 people. Is that right?
You're choosing 3 representatives for number 1, number 2, and number 3, which you don't know what they mean yet.
Good. Okay. Just checking.
So Gabriela's doing this blind, David. So you get your head out of the way. She knows who 1, 2, and 3 are. You don't. So just go with whatever.
Okay. So Christo, are you, because your video's on, are you involved in this?
Yeah,
No.
I'm fine. I can represent, no problem.
Okay, Christo number 1. Christina number 2. And Jackie number 3.
Okay. So I'll rename them. Crystal is 1, right?
Yeah.
Oops. Oops, the field went away. That means something. So Christina, can you please put, no, I can put it for you. She's number 2, right?
Christina is number 2.
Christina is number 2. Yeah.
Okay, and Jack is number 3. All right. So just fill the field, please. Once you're ready. How do you feel, number 1?
I don't feel as if I'm really fully connected with this. It's I sort of lost a little bit in the whole circumstances, and I can't quite put my finger on it. That's about all I can get at the moment. Yeah. I'm aware of the other 2 to the side, but I'm just aware of them. It's not a direct connection, a direct sense of relationship with them in any significant form. They're there.
Okay. Number 2.
Yes, I apologize. My English is not so good. I understand almost everything, but please put me back, Gabriela. I want to go just back, para baixo, back, down.
Like this?
More, a little bit more. There.
You feel better?
Yes, I want to watch, just to watch them.
Okay. And number 3?
I felt flat. Felt flat, frustrated, and when number 2 moved away, it's like, really? And I don't know what to do. I just feel, yeah.
Okay. All right. Something that calls my attention is the fact that they are all looking to the same direction. David, do you have an idea of what is here that they are all looking at? You don't have the mic.
You're on mute.
No, not yet.
All right.
Okay.
I didn't think too much about turning them, to be honest with you, when I put them there, but maybe they're deliberately facing the same way.
It always is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are they looking at?
I'm not sure. What I'm getting is the suburb that I lived and operated my businesses in was being redeveloped by some pretty major developers, and I think that's what everybody's looking at. They're looking at the community and the impact, the development. They're looking at it from different views. So some people are seeing the community destroyed by big developers, and some are seeing the development making them lots of money.
Okay, I don't think that is it. I think that is your
Okay.
intellectual response, but that's okay. That's
Yeah.
why we need the constellation.
Yeah.
So can you please choose another pair of feet and place them where they're looking at? Perfect, thank you. Now please choose someone to be number 4. Those who are eligible to be representative, please turn on the camera so that he can choose.
Terry, would you do that, please?
Yeah.
Thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So while you're getting acquainted to the field, I'll ask numbers 1, 2, and 3 what changes once number 4 comes into the field.
You're on mute, Christo.
When number 2 moved backwards, it was interesting because attention suddenly went backwards, and I felt as if I was probably, there was less meaning in whatever it was that was going on here, if that person or that whatever it is moved back that distance, and I sort of felt a little bit lost, a little bit anxious. When 4 came in, my attention was more focused towards 4 than towards 2 or 3. It had a sense of meaning for me. I don't know exactly what the meaning was, but it was a sense of meaning that I could now at least focus on, but I still don't know that I can do anything about it, whatever it is.
What changes for number 2?
I'm just waiting to see. I'm focused on the 4, number 4. And I am in, how can I say, going to Portuguese, alerta. I'm
Alert.
Alert to see what movement I have to do if number 4 does any movement. I'm just paying attention what he will do.
Mm-hmm.
He
You're
or
connected
she,
to
the
number 4.
Yes, but it's not is a connection, I'm worried about.
Okay.
I'm worried.
Mm-hmm. And number 3?
I'm actually really angry and I feel like I want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to look close. I want to look straight at number 4.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you like to move?
Yeah, I want to look straight at number 4.
So you would like to do like that, for example?
Yes. Yep.
Is it better? Closer?
No, I'm all right the distance, but I just want to look straight at number 4.
Okay. Would number 1 want to move?
Yeah, number 1 wants to look at 4 as well.
Like that?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels much better.
So finally, the soul attention attracting number 4. How do you feel?
I feel like I feel actually a little dizzy in the head. I feel like I'd like to move back from them a little bit. I felt that immediately.
Like that?
Yes.
Further away?
Yes. That's
But inside the
little
field.
more. Little more, yeah. And then when they looked at me, actually, I kind of laughed and felt a little bold. But I still don't feel very, I feel dizzy in my head or something, like heated and.
How do you feel when you look to each one of them? When you look at number 1, number 2, and number 3?
I want them to just leave me alone.
But each one of them, look at number 1, please. How do you feel about number 1?
I feel like I don't have respect for number 1. I am disrespectful.
Okay.
Like just leave me alone.
You don't see him, number 1, or you don't care about, or you just
I don't care.
You
I
don't
don't
care.
care.
You don't relate.
Right.
You don't relate. Right?
True. Yes.
Okay. How do you feel about number 2?
I'm glad they're that far away. I'm very don't really care.
Okay. And number 3?
I am just really overwhelmingly tired.
Number 3, the same. I could just turn around and walk away from them all.
Okay. All right. How are you feeling, David? Do you get, although you don't rationally know what they are, what are your...
When number 2 moved away, there's very strong emotions came up in me.
Good or bad?
Bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt sadness and some fear.
Mm-hmm.
When number 3 was talking, I felt empathy, I guess, with what I was hearing. Yeah, that's it. But I'm there's moments when I'm feeling quite emotionally connected. It's taking me back to those times. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll tell you what is going on, so that we can move to another phase. So number 1 is your representative, the representative of David.
Yeah.
Number 2 is the representative of the waiting option.
Yeah.
Number 3 is the representative of the legal suit option, very angry. And number 4 is what really connects you to all of these situations.
Which is what?
And so what the field says is that your connection to this situation is probably, there is something between you and this situation that is not really, the relationship is not through legal. Because your version in the possibility of a legal suit just gets more and more angry and doesn't change a bit of the situation itself.
Yeah.
Your option of waiting just wants to move away, because actually your option to wait was your protection from the wish to do something. So when we started, it was you on the left, waiting option on the middle, literally between you and the legal suit option, protecting you from the legal suit option. But this protection wants to go away, almost to fade away. Wants to look at everybody, but not be part of the triangle. So what we can do now, if you want, is to try to see what is between you and number 4. Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So I'll ask number 3 and number 2 to just, you put your cameras off, please. Number 3 and number 2, but you stay connected. Okay, you stay connected, because maybe you will come back. I don't really think so, but it can happen. Okay, and I'll put you here on the waiting spot, on the looking at spot. It's interesting because it's hard to place number 1 really looking at number 4, and it's not often that it happens to me. So it's kind of, there is a big resistance here in the field. So number 1, can you please look, even in the camera, can you look straight to number 4 and see how you feel about it when you're really facing number 4?
It's like a on the edge of powerlessness is one of the ways to put it. I really don't know which way to proceed with this, and I guess there's a little bit of anxiety about getting too close in some ways. It was interesting before when number 4 moved back, I felt that by the 4 moving back, I was actually losing power in the relationship, and I had a very strong sense of that person, that whatever it is not being responsible, and that was making me anxious, stroke a little bit angry. But right now,
your protection.
Sorry.
Number 2, you mean when number 2 went back?
No, when number 4 moved up to the top, wanted to move back.
Okay.
It interrupted my power in relation to that. I felt less powerful in relation to that. I don't know how else to describe it, it's just less power. And with that was a sense of they are not being responsible. They're not taking responsibility here. That was just the sense that came through with it. That seems to be related to my power capabilities as well. Yeah.
And how is it for number 4?
I feel a kind of sternness, like almost like I'm it's very difficult to actually, really hard to listen and to take it in. And I'm kind of stern and waiting for, maybe somehow I need to correct something. So I'm waiting for that. I'm ready to correct something with this stern stance in case it happens.
Okay, I don't quite understand. You feel that you need to correct something. You need to correct something.
I feel that there might be something that comes up that I will have to correct. So I'm prepared.
Okay. Okay, so there is a sense of responsibility there, but you're not really ready to put your hands on what needs to be resolved.
Right. It's more like I'm waiting for a fire to start and I'm going to put it out. That's metaphorically.
Okay, of course. Yeah, okay. All right.
So I'm cautious, a cautious attitude.
Okay. So, David, I'll ask you a very hard question. So what we have here is whatever you're looking at that drives you to the first thought of suing or not suing, understands that it has some kind of risk that you have to face when something else happens and we don't know what this something else is. But what matters here is that you can find what you are looking for. The constellation is yours, it's not hers. So if you could do anything in the field, if you could arrange the field in any manner that you would feel a miracle happen. I went to bed, I had a dream. In my dreams, everything was solved. And the next morning, I wake up and I look around and I realize it was solved. How would it look like in the field? You can place whatever you want in the field, not a lot, just a few objects, a few elements. And then you will see the resolving picture.
I heard what you said. I'm just not completely clear what yeah, I heard you. So you don't want me to describe the outcome, you want me to put more feet into the picture, yeah?
Or not, you can just, for example,
I think I'm looking for I see that as the authorities stepping in the middle and doing their job.
So I'll take this back and let's see what happens then. Do you want another representative for the orange feet?
Sure. Sure.
Or you want to ask someone to shift the 2 or the 3 or someone else?
No, Leslie, would you like to do that, please?
No, but she's number 4, right?
No.
So not number 4. Leave number 4 where she is and
Yeah.
choose someone else. That can be the 2 or the 3 who went to rest.
Yeah, Leslie.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. No, so I'm okay. So Leslie, can you put your camera on, please? Is it on?
Yes.
It's just not moving very much, were you, Leslie?
Okay. Thank you.
I'm the one with a scarf in the number 5.
How is it to be there?
I feel pretty aggressive, ready for a fight. Fearless. Very capable for the fight, like an experienced soldier who's done it a lot and is ready for another battle. And I don't much notice David behind me. I mostly notice number 4 in front of me, the one I'm going to fight. Mm-hmm. Even though David is like right behind me, I don't really notice him much.
Mm-hmm. And how does number 1 feel right now?
I feel like I'm pushing number 5 to do what I'm finding difficult to do. It's got a feeling I'm putting pressure on that, almost overseeing it. And that I need the number 5 in there to enable me to get, or to enable this to happen, whatever this is.
And how does 4 is feeling now?
That's interesting. I actually put my hands open and on my table when 5 stepped in. I am very alert around 5, but calm, and I do feel still that pressure on my head.
Mm-hmm.
I feel calmer.
Okay. That is kind of understandable.
Okay, when you move that back, I can breathe easier. That's number 1.
Is it better or worse for 5?
I feel like 4 and myself are the same side, like we're honorable opponents, like we are peers. And David is so much smaller that I don't notice him very much. Mm-hmm. There is a little bit of a sense that without David, I might not have noticed 4. Like he pointed the way. But now that I see 4, David is just so small. And now it's up to 4 and me. And we are equals. And when 4 puts her hands out like that, I relax and I go, oh, okay, good. We are equals. Now we're going to do it.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
How does the representative of David feel when I did?
When you made me smaller?
Yeah. How did it feel?
I got anxious that if I'm that small, this isn't going to happen.
Okay. Not too big.
Okay. No, it's good because I feel stronger with it being slightly larger. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of equal. Everybody's at the same size. How do you feel now? 1, David.
Better than when it was small.
Okay, but there, once the situation is like that, how do you feel? Is that okay for you?
I would think it's like watching to see whether things will happen or whether I need to put more, step in more.
Okay.
It's I'm more comfortable, but with being like that, I feel as if I'm actually able to keep moving this forward to some degree, but I know that it's also more out of my hands, but I need to keep that pressure going for me to feel that something will actually get resolved here. It can still slip through the cracks.
Okay.
Now it comes close to me there.
Okay. And when I move number 5 a little backwards, how does 4 feel? Does the pressure in the head diminishes a bit? How do you feel 4?
It doesn't matter. It didn't make any difference, but the pressure subsided when number 5 spoke. I feel like I'm in my element with her, and I actually feel happy she's there.
Okay. So that's it, David. How do you feel now? Do you feel that this is balanced?
I'm trying to really understand what 4 is.
The situation.
Okay, so
you don't need to give details. You know it better than anybody.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's the situation that you need to solve. It's the issue.
So the situation's feeling better that the authorities are there.
Yeah.
The authorities feel like they can deal with it.
Exactly.
So I need to.
You are the cause why the authorities went there.
Right.
But after you did that, there's nothing else that it's really up to you to do.
Yeah.
So if what we have here, the summary, I'll stop sharing, and then if you want, I'll make a picture of the field and I'll send it to Edwina and she'll send it to you. So what is really clear is that whatever is happening that is moving you to a chaos in your life, it's bigger than you can deal with on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
So it's not up to you to sue or not to sue.
Yeah.
What you could do, you already did.
Yeah.
And the authorities that are in the middle between you and the situation, they are there because you put them there.
Yeah.
But once you put them there and you keep pushing, then they are the element that was missing between you and the situation.
Yeah.
In the situation, what is very systemic here is that the situation wants to be seen by the right element.
Wow.
The situation, no one wants to be in disharmony. No one wants to be unbalanced. No one wants to have an advantage that is not a natural, a deserved benefit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The system looks for balance. But the thing is, who brings balance? It's not your legal suit.
Yeah.
And it's not waiting, because waiting means I'm not decided yet if I will sue or not. So you're always in the fight mode, but never going to fight. So that is very anguishing.
Yes.
So you've done what you had to do.
Gabriela, I have one little piece. Do you want to hear it, or should I be quiet?
Sure.
It was just in response to what David said, number 1 said at the end, about needing to be the same size in order to keep the pressure on, or to make sure it keeps moving. My response was, the mosquito is really powerful.
Hello?
That actually you and your smallness.
Just one moment, because it froze for me. So can you just rewind a little bit?
That the mosquito and its smallness does something very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And that you did something very powerful but you're not as big as we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't help you to think that you are. But acting from your smallness was effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But its smallness in terms of power is one thing, and in terms of usefulness in the field is something else. So he was very useful to the system. He was the reason why the system found balance, which makes him equal to everybody else, although it's not his fight.
Right.
So the great conclusion is he did his part, and now it's not his fight anymore. So neither waiting nor deciding to sue is what brings him to peace.
Yeah. So if I said to you that I've felt throughout this process that the people who did what they did to me probably do this to people all the time, but get away with it, and I've felt a very strong spiritual path in doing this, making a stand, basically, because I think it's going to protect a lot of other people in the future. So what you've done through the constellation there makes complete sense to me.
Good.
Thank you.
If you sleep better, it's already winning the situation.
That makes so much. It makes so much sense. Because my mind has been saying, "What do I do next to try and do this?" But my heart, in many respects, has been telling me that I've done what I needed to do. There may be a little bit more to do with the authorities, but they need to step up now, and I've done as much as I can do.
If I can just add something in there, Gabriela, as the representative for David, it was my sense of it was that there's a very strong compulsion, maybe not quite the word, to have people take responsibility, and that was what was actually causing me the anxiety, and I couldn't relax until I could step back just a little bit, still hold my personal power, and be there if it was needed, but then I could actually just relax within myself. I don't know if I'd be able to just let it all take its course, but that insistence that the other party take responsibility was causing me anxiety. I don't know if that makes sense to David, but
good. So that's it. Hope it was useful for everybody. It normally is. Normally, when we are part in a constellation, even when we're just watching, we always benefit for something in our lives. Nobody's here by chance.
Gabriela, I'm very grateful, and to those who did the representative roles, thank you for that, because it has helped me enormously. I'm very, very, very grateful.
Well,
Can
that's
I
the
make?
proof, isn't it?
Was a pleasure.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I saw David symbolically.
Just one thing. A comment about the methodology, about, theory or practice of the methodology, not about the case. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw David symbolically as the David in the past in the Bible, and him up against Goliath, and he has his slingshot there, and now it's up to the slingshot to work out whether it makes its mark or not.
Good. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Analogy. All right. Thank you so much for staying with us so long. It was a pleasure. It is a pleasure. And I think, Edwina, we must organize something with the judges. Maybe we bring in more judges, more than the two, and we make something like a round table.
Yeah.
Up to you. And if everybody wants to comment on that and how interesting it is or not to listen to Brazilian judges. Okay.
I think the more that we can share what they're doing there, and they're, like you said, they're different perspectives, because some are in, there's just one judge in one place doing it, and then in Rio there's a whole group of them. I think the more that people can hear what's being done and take whatever piece of that into wherever they are, and the word gets spread, I think it's going to be beneficial for everybody. So yeah, if they're happy to talk to us, we can work out how we do it, and if you're happy to translate if they don't speak English. Sure. And maybe people just bring their questions. I mean, we had 83 people who signed up for this session, so they'll all get the recordings, and I guess maybe the timing wasn't right for some people, so we might have to figure out a different time. But I think this is a conversation to keep having, to let people know that there is another way that we can maybe introduce into legal circles, and see where it goes. Yeah. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you everyone for staying a little bit longer. Thank you, Gabriela, for sharing your wisdom with us and your experience. And thank you, David, for giving us an opportunity to experience a constellation, and to see a real life constellation that's affecting lives, and for having the courage to share that with us and to do what you did. If anyone's got any burning questions, we're happy to stay a little bit longer with questions, but otherwise we will keep you posted as to the next event when we talk to some judges, or talk some more about this really important topic. So thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you all.
Yes. Thank you, Gabriela. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And it doesn't look like anyone's got questions. I don't think.
No questions.
No questions. Okay, good.
Very
You've answered
clear.
everything. Gabriela, there's no questions. You answered everything.
Either they didn't understand anything, or they understood everything. So.
No.
Understood everything.
Okay.
It was great. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.
Great. That was really good. Hi, Robbie and Leo. Gabriela's gone.
That was fantastic. Really loved it.
Yeah,
It was
great.
It was really good. Thank you, Edwina.
Okay, no worries. I'll check in with Gabriela and see where she's at. So thanks, everyone.